Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Los Angeles City Council. Today is May 17th, 2006, and we are in the John Ferraro Council Chambers, room 340 of City Hall. I want to welcome our City Council ambassadors in the back who are here to assist visitors to City Hall. We can stop in and get the day's agenda and learn any questions you might have about the proceedings of the Los Angeles City Council. We meet here each Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m., except for the first Friday of the month, in which we go to Van Nuys City Hall to take our meetings to the folks in the San Fernando Valley. And we invite people to come here to City Hall to testify for our general public comment or on items that have been agendized for public comment. You can also do that via Van Nuys every single meeting, where we have a remote facility in Van Nuys City Hall to be able to testify and hear you, see you here in council chambers. We are being broadcast live on Channel 35, LA City View, your city channel, and also rebroadcast in the evenings. We also are available through the internet on the World Wide Web at our city's homepage, www.lacity.org, where we have streaming webcast of our council meetings. And lastly, you can call in to the city phone, or council phone, excuse me, at 213-621-CITY, and you can listen to the proceedings of the City Council and the City Council committees each day that we have those meetings. We are right now awaiting a quorum, or 2/3 of our 15 members, 10 members. We are a couple members short, but I want to thank the members who are here pursuant to council rules on time. That's Councilmember Grewal, Councilmember Labange, Councilmember Padilla, Councilmember Parks, Councilmember Perry, Councilmember Wesson, and we welcome back Councilmember Zine. It's good to have him back in chambers. We have Councilmember Cardenas excused today, but we would like to ask Councilmember Hahn, Councilmember Huizar, Councilmember Reyes, Councilmember Rosendahl, Councilmember Smith, and Councilmember Weiss to come as soon as possible. We are waiting those members in order to begin the meeting. We are past the hour we are scheduled to begin, and if we do not have 2 more council members in the next 5 minutes, we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you. Again, I want to thank Council Members Grewal, Labange, Padilla, Parks, Perry, Wesson, and Zine for being here pursuant to our council rules on time. We are awaiting Council Members Hahn, Huizar, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, and Weiss, who are not here right now pursuant to our council rules. Should be here at the beginning of the meeting. Again, if those council members will make their way down as soon as possible, and if they're not, we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Reyes. We are now just awaiting Ms. Hahn, Mr. Huizar, Mr. Rosendahl, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Weiss. Those are the council members we are still waiting for. As soon as one of them arrives, we'll have a quorum.
Here's my agenda.
Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Cardenas, Gruel, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Padilla, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
First order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Weiss moves, Mr. Reyes seconds. If there's no objection, those minutes are approved unanimously.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Zine moves and Mr. Padilla seconds. If there's no objection, those are approved unanimously.
Now would be time for comments from the public on items not on council's agenda.
And now it's time for our public comment. I'd like to invite forward to speak to the council Rosa Romero, Belinda Jo Wright, and Don Garza. Those are our first three speakers. Rosa Romero.
Good morning, Council. My name is Rosa Romero. I've come here several times. I'm coming to speak on behalf of the South Central Farm. As you know, there's less than 5 days left for this, for the buy-in the land, and not that you're listening, but the community has really come forward to help raise money. There's been schools doing bake sales, there's been foundations that have come through, and we really want this to be a joint venture with the public and also private. So we would really like it if you could come out and support and take a stand. You know this is an ethical issue, you know this is right, and I'm hoping you will come through for the Angelinos that are looking up to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Belinda Jo Wright is our next speaker.
Good morning. My name is Belinda Wright, and this is a picture of my mom at the Santa Monica Pier, 1948, and this is a picture of my daughter. They're both deceased now. I miss them a lot. Those Duke Alligator lacrosse examinations of classified harebrained ideas to juice the base look painful. Evidently, my examination is scheduled for Amber Friday. I just want to say that to Mr. Teacup, the guy who made the citizen's arrest on Pico right by that flower shop, and the other guy who got on at the other flower shop on Washington, I wish they have all the best.
Thank you. Don Garza will be our next speaker.
Y vale más que pongan atención, porque aquí estoy. Señor Reyes, señor Zine, señor Padilla, señor Labange. You are paying attention. Y la señora Jan Perry. ¿Dónde está la señora Jan Perry? Okay. Aquí estoy. All right. No, I just came today because I haven't been here in a while, and, you know, I haven't seen your beautiful faces in a while. I was hoping Bill Rosendahl was going to be here so I can yell at him. I've yelled at most of you already in the past, and Bernard, Mr. Parks, I kind of joked with him when he was running for mayor, but see, they're still talking over there, won't pay attention to me, whatever, you know, but that's okay, because I know they're listening. But here's the deal. We had another OD, I think it was Monday night on St. Julian Street, and somebody running down the street with a knife got stuck in the head. We had a killing. I'm pretty sure y'all read it in the papers. Skid Row is still Skid Row, and it's depressing. I was depressed for a whole week. So that's where I'm at. But Mr. Labange, you're over there, right? I got an email from a town crier in London, Ontario, Canada, the last minute here, and his daughter in Lucerne Valley, who's the town crier, and now they want to have a competition again this year. So I'm wondering if maybe we could get together and try to come up with a small competition for the 225th birthday of LA. That would be kind of nice, but it is depressing in my part of the neighborhood right now, and especially when nobody's paying attention, and Dennis Zine is up there talking with my buddy Eric Garcetti up there, but I know you're excited. You just came from a long trip, but you know what? I'm still here, and the thing said 0, and you know what? I'll be back.
Thank you, Don.
I'm tired.
Appreciate your comments today. Michael Hunt is our next speaker, and then Matt Dowd, and then Michael Carrion. Michael Hunt?
Well. Got the outcome of the trial. Hey, they got the nigga with the permit. They didn't catch the nigga stealing. They didn't catch the nigga working, or they got the nigga working, but they didn't catch the nigga selling drugs. They caught the nigga working. Hey, Bill, they found me guilty for working. Ain't that something? They got the nigga for working. Not stealing, not robbing, not killing, but they got the nigga for working. With a permit that you sold him. What you got to say, Bill? You ain't told them that. Now when we're in court, they're fighting over their own ordinance. The city attorney trying to write their own ordinance in court. I got the findings for you, and I got all the sheets, but I'm going to tell you, they caught the nigga working. That's a crime in L.A. because they violated my First Amendment. They caught the nigga working. Ain't that a shame? Now, they didn't catch me stealing. They didn't catch me robbing. They didn't catch me. They caught me. They caught the nigga working with a permit. Son of a gun. With the permit that they sold me from Los Angeles. Son of a gun. Wait, they forgot about my First Amendment rights. They say, well, forget you and your First Amendment rights because you have none because you're a nigga. Niggas do not have rights. That's what you guys made me. You guys found me guilty, so you made me a nigga. A black man works. A nigga robs and steals. But, they didn't catch the nigga robbing or stealing or killing. They caught the nigga working. Son of a... I can't say that, though. But I just want you to know, they violated my constitutional rights. I had to lose to get an appeal, so they had to catch the nigga working. They caught the nigga working, making a living for his family. That's what a black man do, but a nigga robs and steals. Bill, son of a gun. Ain't that
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Matt Dowd. Mr. Dowd?
Yeah, thank you. I'm from Venice Beach. My name's Matt Dowd. I'm getting ticketed under that same ordinance 4215. But first of all, I got a permit bill on the 15th of March in 05, received from Matthew Dowd $25 for, and this is good, pubic expression. It's on my receipt from, what kind of clowns run that department? I mean, that's right from the beginning. So I get a ticket for selling my incense that I make by hand. It's handmade on the spot, in the space that's permitted. I get the ticket, I go to court. I'm not even in the list. Nobody shows up, okay? My second ticket, outside the space and selling incense outside the allotted mark, that was due to be heard today. Well, we got another guy down at that place today. He said this doesn't even exist, this room 101. So I've got a letter in the meantime from the city attorney, Rocky Del Got to Go, come to our office now for a meeting. I mean, why didn't I get the letter before I went to court the first time? I mean, it's outrageous down on the beach now. You can get a T-shirt. If you want to write, Janice Hahn kicked my ass on a T-shirt, you can't do that. But you can put it on a piece of paper and you can sell that. If you want to put, I love Janice Hahn on a rock, that's fine. But if you want to put it on a hat, that's not okay. See? And then we got the city attorney, like everyone's trying to make up these nominal utility laws or what's nominal utility and what isn't. But the federal court said you have to make that determination first and you have to pick and choose
Thank you, Mr. Dowd.
who you kick off the beach.
Our next speaker is Michael Carrion.
My name is Mike Carrion. I'm from the 14th District. And Mr. Weezer, we've been working with you on this. Contractor's building again. Can I get somebody from City Hall to pay attention, please? This illegal activity is going on in all your districts. And you guys are too busy to pay attention to what's going on. People take their time to come down here People got to take a whole day off of work while you guys are supposed to be, quote, working instead of sitting there chatting all day. Listen to us, please. This construction has been going on for a long time, Mr. Weezer. The city is being made fools of, and that makes you, as administrators of the city, fools. This contractor is running circuses where he's playing you guys as puppets. He's the puppet master, and you guys are the puppets. You're not doing anything about it. Illegal dumping. Mr. Lara stated that they were going to shut him down. But it came to my attention last night that this contractor has a friend in City Hall named Mr. Villaraigosa. So all eyes are blind to what he does. Mr. Lara stated that the city attorney had sent him a letter that they were going to shut him down. Oh, they shut down 2 sites and let him continue on this one. This contractor is making fools of each and every one of you. But apparently you guys don't hear because, like right now, you don't pay attention. Your city building and safety said he stopped them. But again, like everything else in City Hall, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And if you know the right things, the laws can be overlooked. Or like Mr. Villaraigosa says, I forgot. I changed my mind. That law doesn't exist, just like the parking enforcement. Those laws don't exist for us.
Thank you, Mr.
Only
Carrillo.
for certain people.
Our next speaker is Samuel Sanchez.
I'd just like to commend what the gentleman just said. He's dead on. And regarding contractors and people accepting money and people having favors within the city, I know that the developer that hopes to destroy the South Central Farm in pretty much the ghetto of your great city here, he used to work for the city, so I'm sure he knows some of you guys. And I know for a fact, according to the Ethics Commission on the 24th floor, that he's given money to a lot of you guys, including the city attorney, Mr. Rocky Delgadillo, including some other people. And I know Mr. Garcetti has said that he's returned the money, and I applaud him for that, but there's too many other people that have accepted that money. And there's too many other people that look the other way when these huge multi-billion-dollar projects go on gentrifying our community. You don't think about, when you sign over those billions of dollars, what kind of stores are going in there? What kind of people are going to be able to be in those areas? Who are you building this for? Are you building this for all classes of people, or are you building it for only certain types? I rode my bike from Grand Avenue and Cesar Chavez because I couldn't afford to park here. What do you think is going to happen when the $2 billion community gentrification agency, the CRA, builds this Grand Avenue project right here at the doorsteps of City Hall? I'll have to park in East LA. Even further, I'll have to park in Garcetti's district just to get to City Hall. I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's right. I don't think you guys consider the low-income people when you sign these things over. I don't think Villaraigosa thought it over when he was a council member doing the illegal backroom deal that Rocky Delgadillo got
Thank you,
paid
Mr.
off
Sanchez.
for by the Community Development Agency,
Thank
by
you.
Horowitz, by everyone else that's involved.
That
And I
finishes
don't
our
think any
public
of these
comment
contracts
for
that
today.
go on in the city.
Excuse me, Mr. Sanchez. I'm sorry, the time's up. Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments today. That is the end of public comment for today. We can run through the next item on the agenda.
On the regular agenda, item 1 is an item notice for public hearing, and the applicant consents to a continuance to June 28th.
Okay, there's no objection. That will be continued till June 28th. Next items?
Items 2 and 3 are items for which public hearings have been held. The Energy and Environment Committee did meet this morning, but those committee reports have not been circulated just yet.
Okay, why don't we hold those on the desk in the meantime? Call those special. Next items?
Items 4 through 13 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration. Items 4 and 5 are commission appointments. Do you wish to hold those on the desk?
Yeah, let's hold the commissioners on the desk.
That would leave you, council, with items 6 through 13.
Okay, 6 through 13, colleagues, any specials? I think we do have cards on 11 and 13, so let's call those special for cards. Any other specials, colleagues? Seeing none, let's open the roll on the balance, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
On the continuation agenda, item 14 is an item for which public hearing has not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, I do not see public speaker cards on that one. We'll open and close the public hearing on 14. Anybody wishing to call 14 special? Colleagues, item number 14. Okay, not, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, that is approved. The facts are clear today. Next items.
That would take you back to the items called special. Do you wish to take up the commissioners at this time?
Yes, let's invite our two commissioners forward. I'm sorry, Mr. Weiss?
I was momentarily distracted and I wasn't following the agenda. I wanted to call 2 and 3 special if we could.
We have those special.
You do have them called special?
Yes, we do. So, no problem. If we can ask Roland Palencia to come forward? Please, yeah, to the table. Mr. Huizar, as a Chair of Audits, would you like to speak first about Mr. Palencia's to the Quality and Productivity Commission?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you very much, and I want to stand up and support Roland Palencia, someone who I've known for some time and someone who is committed to public service and I think would make a great addition to the Quality and Public Productivity Commission. He brings with him a wealth of experience, and right now is a senior program officer for the California Endowment. He's from CD14, Mr. Labange's district, and he has worked, CD4, I'm sorry, I'm used to saying CD14, my own district. He's got a number of years working at the Oscar Romero Clinica, and I would ask our support in supporting Mr. Palencia, someone who I've known for some time, and I believe will continue to work with us as we find efficiencies and way to improve city government. Welcome, Mr. Palencia. Would you mind sharing with the council what you view your role as on this commission and a little bit about your background?
Sure. First of all, I'm really honored to be here today. I'm also very honored to be appointed to the commission. Basically, most of my background is in the nonprofit arena. I have run community clinics, but previous to that, I was also the vice president and chief of operations at the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. So those are, issues that are very dear to my heart. Basically, as you run a nonprofit, you have to think about doing a lot with very few resources. And I think that that's one of the issues and one of the challenges that the city of LA, city government has. And you have to think about the quantitative output as well as the qualitative output, meaning, you have to count the cents, you have to count the dollars, but you also have to be about service. And I think that that is the kind of experience that I bring and the kind of vision and perspective that I bring, where you really have to look at the entity that you're working with as a business with a social consciousness. And that's how I really view it, and have been able to use that underpinning philosophy to move an organization forward without forgetting who they actually serve to.
Thank you. And council members, just for your information, the appointment was waived out of our committee in audits given the time we had spent on the budget process these last 2 weeks. Our audit committee was canceled, but we want to bring this within the 45-day deadline to have his appointment go through council. So the item was waived out of committee, but knowing Mr. Palencia's background and the strong recommendation from the mayor and President Eric Garcetti, we thought it would be prudent to come straight to council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Huizar. We have 3 other interested parties or fans, Mr. Zine, Mr. Reyes, and Mr. Labange.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. The group that you're going to be joining has been through here, serve a very important function. The nonprofit field, we are always struggling for financial support to carry out the mission with the quality and productivity, all about the city operations, to give the public the service that they're paying for. the professional service we're paying for with the dedicated city employees. You join a wonderful group of people who have been confirmed by this council. I just want to let you know that you're going to be working with great people who are doing wonderful things, and it's a very challenging task in this day and age to compete with that. But since you're used to challenges with the nonprofit, this will fall right in. The challenges are there, but the benefit is to the people of Los Angeles. So I want to welcome you to that. Appreciate Mr. Jose Huizar's comments. I don't know you personally, but I know that the mayor has brought people of great character to these different commissions, including this commission that you're about to join. So congratulations to you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zine. Mr. Reyes is next, and then Mr. Labange.
Thank you, Council President. I want to thank the mayor for appointing Mr. Palencia. I rise to support him. I've known Mr. Palencia in various arenas, starting back in the academic days back in UCLA, and watch him advance in his career in the health sector, nonprofit sector. He holds a strong sense of discipline and a strong focus on addressing social ills. And I want to thank him for contributing his time and lending his expertise in this particular commission. If there was a goal that you would want to achieve in this commission, can you share that one goal with us in this particular body?
Sure. Well, I think that is probably one of the best kept secrets in the city. I mean, I attended the award ceremony, and I was very, very impressed with the quality of work that many of the departments perform. But people don't really know. People just know about the downside of what the city does, and I think it will be great if we have more of the citizens of this city to actually come and testify how great this service and really pinpoint how that has really enhanced their quality of life. And so one of my goals will be to really go to kind of like figure out how we can take that very positive message of customer service or quality service to the citizens of this city, so they will be more aware that the city indeed is really doing a bona fide, a best effort attempt to serve them.
Ms. Palencia, and one of the issues that I think is critical for the city is how we allocate resources, the formula that we use. For many years, we've defined the allocation of resources based on geography, on size and proportions of land, as opposed to number of people living on the land. So that's one area that I would hope you would have time to explore with your colleagues in this commission, and looking at the services that are being provided through the city to its communities. And trying to understand that when you have a place that has 40,000 persons per square mile, why are they allocated the same resources for cleaning the streets, sidewalks, as an area that only has 5,000 people per square mile? So again, those formulas are age-old formulas that need to be revisited, and I'm hoping your body can start raising those questions and start talking about how we create a city that everyone could be proud of and balance the playing field in terms of how we absorb these resources. So if you can do that, that'd be great. It would take us a long way in creating a more well-rounded city. So thank you so much for your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Our next speaker is Tom Labange.
Thank you for your service to this city, and I know your total background will add to contribute to a better efficiency and for this commission, and I appreciate anything I can do to help you. Please call on me. Thank you.
I just want to make a closing comment. I have never been asked to be on a city commission, and I think that's definitely a privilege of service, particularly because being an immigrant into this city, being an openly gay man, being someone who's been in the nonprofit sector, I think it says a lot about this city council and a lot about the mayor, about inclusiveness, literally not leaving any city behind, and just making sure that we have a city that really represents and incorporates all the talents and all perspectives from the citizens that it serves. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Palencia, and I would add my comments as well that don't go anywhere, we haven't voted yet, so I would add my comments that your work in the community has been exemplary. I know you're a miss at Clinica Oscar Romero, but you're able to have a wider platform now in the work that you're doing with California Endowment. I want to thank you for that and putting yourself forward for service. So with that, we'll take the vote. If we can open the roll on the nomination, close the roll, and I do not have a card on this one for you, Ms. Hawkins. I have one on a different one, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. Congratulations, Commissioner. Next is item number 5. We'll come back to 2 and 3. 2 and 3 are going to come later. Number 5 is Patricia Means. My apologies. Ms. Hawkins, you're correct. Number 4, why don't you come forward for public comment?
Excuse me, Eric, I saw your
You're-
head, that was not a mistake.
You're correct.
You can't
You have 2
pass
minutes.
nothing on agenda walking over number 4. Please stop trying to be intelligent and knowing that you are lying. Thank you, Eric Cassetti. On number 4, he is a robot with animal legs. We must stop all job hiring in all job positions until all illegal people are out of the United States of America. California must be bombed at this time because of background check of how to hire dealing with years on the job, whether the illegals have been working 6 months or over 8 different jobs in less than 4 years. We need to know what factory or agency, unlike Apple One, they have worked for in different states. For example, faking identity of being Janice Hine, but her old soldier name in 1930, leader during Pearl Harbor time, was Chris Phillip, which is really his real name. Janet Hine's style would not stand with her faking surgery from a lower penis into a halfway seen penis on. She can't fake any longer that she was not a soldier in Japan. Change her identity to a woman was so she would not have to go to war in USA, hiding in the United States of America. She is also faking her age of 50. Something. She says she's 50-something, but she is over 70 years old. She can no longer write on any more application of apartment to live in after being evicted from so many now for faking.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hawkins. Thank you for your 2 minutes. We have another card for you on item 4. We'll come back to that, for item 2. We now have item number 5. Patricia Means, come forward. Welcome, and thank you as well for putting yourself forward for service. I suppose this went through, this was waived by Budget and Finance, but Mr. Parks, if you'd like to lead the comments, please. And I'm sorry, before you start, Mr. Parks, if I can ask everybody, please keep their conversations down. It's getting a little loud in council chambers.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had to waive this through Budget and Finance because of a timing issue, but I just want to say that having known Pat Means for longer than she will acknowledge, that she has been a mainstay in our community, not only an activist, but a business person. In fact, we'll give her a plug. She has a major program coming up in Palm Springs very soon where she's going to bring together the black business community on a variety of seminars, and she may want to comment on that. But Pat, why don't you tell us why on this commission would be important to you to be a member of it, and why you put yourself forward on this service. We should also mention that Pat is a resident of the 10th District, Mr. Wesson's area, and so we kind of share her as a community icon. So why don't you start off and tell us why you're interested?
Well, thank you so much for that very kind introduction, Councilmember Parks. Before I start, I would like to tell you, if
If we could really have everybody's attention, I'm sorry, Ms. Mean. If we could have everybody's attention, there's quite a few conversations going on. Please, let's give our nominee the respect. Please, go ahead.
Okay, as we go through this proceeding, if I start to cry or sniff or cough, I'm not trying to evoke your sympathy. I have bronchitis. But for those who shook my hand, it's not contagious. As Councilmember Parks said, I do operate a company located in the 10th District. It's called Turning Point Communications. I've been in business for 14 years. We established Turning Point after the Los Angeles uprising in order to bring a positive voice to issues surrounding African Americans in Los Angeles. In the last 14 years, we've become a national publication, a major national publication, and we target African American business owners. I think the question was why I would like to be considered for this commission appointment. I feel as a citizen of Los Angeles, it is all of our duty to do what we can to make sure that our city operates well, that we serve our citizens. The Board of Fire and Police Pension Commissioners has oversight of a budget of almost $14 billion. And I know that is of interest and concern to all the members of the City Council, but I happen to know that a couple of the members of the City Council are particularly interested in the fact that this board would make prudent and wise decisions on the way those funds are invested.
Let me ask Pat, could you give us an overview of, after the riots, early 90s, you took on a task that turned into the Turning Point magazine, and give us a little overview of that and how you came about developing that concept and what has been some of the outcomes.
Okay. After the Los Angeles uprising, as many of you know, there was a lot of negative information about the South Los Angeles community, particularly the African American community. We decided that we would do our part to make sure positive things and the positive stories were told about Los Angeles. We went to the streets of Los Angeles and asked people what they would like. How could we be of assistance as a company to make sure that positive information and that we contributed to growth instead of contributing to negative stereotyping. The outcome of that, and it was voted on by members of the community, was that they wanted a magazine, a quality magazine. The community even named the magazine. The name of the magazine is Turning Point Magazine, because it symbolizes the time where lives change, where businesses change for the better. And we wanted to make sure our publication and our company, indeed, it would be a symbol of helping turn for the better. Since that time, we've also established TPC Foundation, which is a 501c3 organization. Through TPC Foundation, over the past 6 years, we have put almost 1,000 youth through our financial literacy program and through our paid internship program for college students. We raise the money both through Turning Point and through the TPC Foundation to make sure that youth from underserved communities have an opportunity to know what the business world is like, and also the crucial areas of financial empowerment. Those are my proudest outcomes, actually, those almost 1,000 kids who have gone through the TPC Foundation and Turning Point Magazine programs.
Let me just say thank you for putting yourself forward, and certainly I think if everyone had an opportunity to read your resume, they would get to the same conclusion that I have, that you're well qualified, and we just appreciate you wanting to be involved in this public service.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hold on one second. We now have Mr. Wesson to give some comments and questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. Ms. Means, I don't rise today to ask you a single question. I just rise to wholeheartedly support your commission. You know, your appointment here today, I just wonder where and how you're going to find the time. Members, we have an opportunity today to appoint someone that's committed to this great city of Los Angeles, to appoint someone who has a track record of giving more than she receives, a tireless worker, an individual that you have never heard a negative word about, a person who understands these issues, and an individual that we know is going to do a phenomenal job. And where it relates to the Turning Point magazine, hey, Chief, I was on the front page. Anyway, with that said, I urge all of my colleagues to vote yes on this appointment. I guarantee you will not be making a mistake.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wesson. Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've had the pleasure of knowing Pat for a very long time, and I'm so thrilled with your appointment. Both Mr. Parks and Mr. Wesson have talked about your history here in Los Angeles, but as a businesswoman, as someone who is going to add, I know, your expertise and your passion to serve on this fire and police pension, which is so important to our officers and to our firefighters. And so I know that your commitment is going to continue on as you have as a community leader and a business person, and just wanted to add my 2 cents to say thank you with your busy schedule and all that you do for your willingness to serve on this commission, and to congratulate the mayor for appointing you. Look forward to working with you, Pat, as part of our city family.
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl, and let me also congratulate you on the nomination and your exemplary service as well. And I know there's a lot of momentum on the commission to look at investments here locally, whether it's in affordable housing, whether it's in local businesses. I think you'll be a perfect choice and perfectly positioned to help continue that momentum. So with that, if we can open the roll on the nomination, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Congratulations, Commissioner.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Padilla?
Good morning, colleagues. Rise at this point, Mr. President, to, in a good faith gesture, move reconsideration on item 14.
Okay, why don't we open the roll on reconsideration? Unless anybody else wishes to be heard on reconsideration, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, we will hold that on the table as a special.
Or I believe we can actually probably dispense with that quickly, unless we want to replay the discussion from yesterday. This, just to remind people what the item is, was a motion that I made verbally as a response to our CLA at the conclusion of the budget session yesterday, asking for a formal recognition of an item that was not in the budget yesterday. We had some discussion, we had some debate. It was a 7-7 vote yesterday, colleagues. So by council rules, there were not the 8 votes to adopt. There were also not the 8 votes to kill the matter. So it carried over to today. It wasn't received and filed either. So that's why it appears on today's agenda. It's not me trying to sneak anything through. It's on the agenda that was posted, and it must have been approved unanimously when we were going through the consent items. But it's now back before us. I'll call it to everybody's attention, and thank you for the reconsideration.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Padilla. As long as it's before us, Mr. Wesson, why don't we continue with it?
You know, members, what Mr. Padilla, and I really hope you pay attention to this, what Mr. Padilla just did is a class act. He knew the rules. His bill or motion, I got to get used to calling it a motion, was passed on consent. When that was brought to his attention, he then rose and asked for consideration, because he knew, based on yesterday's debate, that there was some concerns over this issue. And for him to do this on his own, I think sends a signal to each and every one of us that basically defines class. I come from the assembly, and I wish Mr. Cardenas and I was here today, because he and I really got in trouble once when I was out of the room and he was out of the room, and this guy lowballed this thing that he and I had both stopped, and he refused and basically threatened the legislature, if you then vote this down, I'm going to get up on every budget item and you'll be here for 2 weeks. Mr. Padilla didn't do that. It's a class act. It's a gesture that I personally will never forget, and I thank you very much for doing that. Class act.
Mr. Huizar.
Thank you very much, and I too want to thank Mr. Padilla for what he showed today, and we could all learn from that. I don't think we all want to reiterate the discussion from yesterday. I think that's a sense from the council, but I'm still urging you all to vote no on this item, and thank you, Mr. Padilla, again.
Does anybody else wish to be heard on this? If not, this will be our third vote on the facts. Are folks clear about what they're voting on? Does anybody need description? Okay, a yes vote on this will affirm or clarify that the budget contains no allocation for any changes in governance in LAUSD. A no vote will dispute that clarification. Mr. Huizar.
It's a bit biased the way you state it.
No, it will, I'm literally reading it off of what here is.
Okay.
A yes vote, because it says the council clarify. It says, use the words clarify. It says, it will affirm the motion that the council clarifies that the mayor's proposed budget contained no allocation for changes in governance. Said a no vote would dispute that because it doesn't necessarily mean that you're saying it doesn't or does. You're just not agreeing with that assertion. So I tried to do that as clearly as possible. It just says that we're not clarifying that.
Right, okay.
Period. So that's, I tried to be as straightforward and unbiased with that as possible. So anybody unclear? Oh. Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Reyes?
I did want to make one comment, and I'm going to be brutally blunt here.
Please do.
We have a tendency to pay too much attention to the media. My understanding last night that there was reports that the council was sticking a finger in the mayor's eye by taking his vote. I think that's inaccurate, it's inappropriate. What I am saying here with my vote is that the fact is there is no money identified in the budget to deal with this change of dealing with the school district and all the policies that go with it. It does not mean, at least from my vote, that I don't support the mayor. The fact is the mayor is doing his best to create an approach to deal with education. We have yet to find out what that is. It doesn't preclude us from allocating resources to that effort in the future. We did agree to send this item to committee so that we can deal with the details at the committee level as we should. Then we can move money to address those policy issues. And we have that flexibility. So I just want to make sure that, at least from my part, that it is not being twisted where we are against the mayor or for the mayor. For me, it's just a point of fact that the budget does not, at this moment, have funds for this process for the moment. It does not mean we don't support the mayor. It doesn't mean we're against it. And again, we have our vehicles, we have our process, and we will engage it in a responsible manner and make informed decisions. So I just want to say that for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. We have three more speakers, Mr. Rosendahl, Mr. Smith, Mr. Weiss, and Mr. Huizar for a second time.
Well, it's kind of an interesting moment here. It's a bit of a hypothetical, you know. We really don't know what we're talking about on it, and yet we're voting on it. And the reason I'm voting no is I just don't want to get into that discussion until the process develops along down the road and we get a sense of what the state is doing, what the city is doing. Why put any restraints on this discussion, or why even bring it up? That's why a no vote is the right vote. Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Well, just to the opposite of that, we have in the budget right now a statement dealing with conversion technologies. The council has said we want to go into finding a way of dealing with our trash. We don't know how much it is, so we put zero in the budget and just put it on there for 5 years, knowing that it's going to come up, knowing that the debate will take place, and knowing that in the budget, it's already part of the thought process. What Ms. Padilla is doing is putting in the thought process. It says, we don't know it's going to be an impact, but this is going to take place, and we should footnote the budget to know that we may have to come back and address that issue. All it's doing is it leaving open for the future debate. It's not saying we're going to commit money, but it's saying that in the budget we should be aware of the fact that we may have to. I think that's what he's done. He's allowed us the thought process to be footnoted in the budget without a dollar amount that we can come back to and address if we have to. I don't see the big argument today, quite frankly. There's no cost factor. Nobody's hurt. We're supporting the mayor by saying this is a process going on that may have an impact that we need to take a look at. So I don't know why we're fighting about it. I'm going to support it.
Mr. Weiss for a first time, Mr. Labange for a first time, Ms. Hahn for a first time, Mr. Huizar for a second.
Thank you. I'd ask if Mr. Miller could join us at the table. Colleagues, I just want to say one of the smartest public policy ideas I have seen around here in a long time was when I woke up one morning a few months ago and saw that Alex Padilla and Jose Huizar had created the President's Joint Commission on School District Governance Reform. And I woke up, and it was truly one of the signal times I can remember in the last couple of years when I said, I wish I had thought of that. I wish I had thought of that. It was a really good idea to engage both city representatives and school district representatives to imagine governance reform and what it could look like. And thanks to your leadership, the two of you, those folks have been meeting for how long now? Is it 9 months, 6 months? Quite some time. And they've been doing so with support from the city. And I just want to clarify, Mr. Miller, could you tell me, I take it there are, in fact, general fund dollars that are being used to support that commission. Is that correct?
Yes, there are.
And could you just itemize those general fund slots for me?
Well, I have a staff member, Joanne Gaudioso, is working on it.
From the CLA's
From the CLA's office. City clerk has a staff member, I believe it's Adrienne Bass, that is working on it.
And she's assigned to it?
Yeah, that is my understanding, yes.
Okay.
There is, specifically, I don't recall who, there is, city attorney support as needed. So yes, there are.
If council members have staff time assigned to this at all, those are also general fund positions, right?
Yes, they are.
What about the city? We've heard a lot from the city controller in recent months about her interest in schools, and she's made a number of statements and has engaged in give and take with the school board. Is she also a general funded office?
She is, yes.
And so her staffers who work on this are also general funded support?
Yes.
Okay. And so it's just very, I know that it's been presented as a matter of fact that we're voting on, but if we're asked to state as a matter of fact that the budget contains no allocation for changes in governments in LAUSD, clearly we can't say that. We may want one day to have a debate as to whether we would or wouldn't want that to be true, but based on what Mr. Miller said, it isn't true.
Mr. Labange?
Question here. You know what I'd like to know? I mean, all this stuff here, forget about the politics of it. How much do we help the school district every day? How much does LADOT spend? Okay, how much does street services spend? How much does all that? And that may be important to know at some time. It's not about an issue of governance. I think it would be important with technology. And you said Ms. Gaudioso is working on this?
She is.
To break down, because I know in particular, and there's no bias in here, but I know there's 2 new traffic lights at St. George and Griffith Park, and Monon and Griffith Park, and Tracy and Griffith Park, right next to John Marshall High School. I know they got new sidewalks. I know they got new streets resurfaced. I think that would be important to know in the sense of the overall picture, but we haven't gone that way yet. But I know, is to speak to the motion, which, if it's a verbal motion, is it in writing now? Is it here in front of us? Right now, Madam Clerk?
All that you have right now is what's on the continuation agenda.
As I move that the council clarify that the mayor's proposed 2006-07 budget contains no allocation for any changes in governance in the LA Unified School District.
Well, how do you decipher that? Because how's the staff time of a office, a city attorney's office, a controller's office? How much staff is the controller? So I would like to walk away from it, and all due respect to the president and the president who sits to the right of the president or left of the president, but I support the president who sits to the right of me, to make it simple on that. But I would like the technology done, because I do believe, and I just mentioned here, DOT and street services, but recreation and parks, children, youth and families, libraries, there's probably a large percentage of money, Jerry Miller, that we commit in relationship to our schools just in our normal business, which is a positive thing, and we should know that. That's kind of what I heard what you were saying. But on the other end here, we got to do what we got to do. You spent money, contrary to, I'm not pointing at you, Greg, but to look at this Renew LA on the energy, and that was important to make sure that you were able to have that freedom to do that. So it's still another issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hahn for first time, Mr. Weezer for a second, and Mr. Smith for a second.
Thank you, colleagues. I agree, too. I mean, obviously, we're all looking at this differently. I certainly think that the staff time and money that we've already allocated to this joint commission on governance is actually appropriate. They're studying it. They're taking public testimony. They're not changing the governance of LAUSD. This commission is taking a long, thoughtful approach to debating what reforms might be recommended to the school district. They're not making changes. They're just possibly at the end of their study will recommend some things that they think will make the school district work better. And I'm voting yes on this because I'll tell you, this is an issue that I think has not been fully vetted. I don't think people understand what the mayor's plan is. I think there's no debate that the school district could use some reforms, that there could be some more accountability, there could be some more local control. But I will tell you, the people that I talk to want to know what is going to be the city's role in the mayor's plan of taking over the school district. They want to know where their money is going to go. And frankly, while we're talking about the budget, they want to know what's in there for their sidewalks, their streets, their trees, their libraries. They want to know what money is in this budget to deliver basic services to residents of LA. So I think it's completely appropriate that we ask for a clarification on whether or not there is money in this budget that would support changes in the governance of LAUSD. I think that's completely appropriate, and there's nothing to hide. I have always asked colleagues that one time we could have a full accounting, Mr. LaBonge, of the money we do spend in support of LAUSD. Everything from human relations to our police officers, to our firefighters, to our gang intervention and prevention programs. I would love to see a full accounting of the partnership that Los Angeles plays in supporting and partnering the children of the LA Unified School District. But I think there's nothing wrong. And I think our residents actually deserve to know whether this city budget in any way has money that will be allocated for a change in governance in LAUSD. That's the issue, and I think everyone has a right to know whether that's in this budget or not. So that's why I'm voting yes. We shouldn't be afraid of getting the answer, and I think it's something that I think I owe it to my constituents to let them know what's in this budget. Thank you.
Mr. Weezer is next for a second time, then Mr. Smith, and Mr. LaBonge also for a second time.
Thank you very much. Council members, it's a statement of fact. It's true. There's no money in this budget next year for the mayor's efforts to advocate for more oversight over the school district. There's also no money in this budget for the initiatives we have in Washington, D.C., where our mayor is there yesterday advocating for more money for certain projects. Are we going to put that in there? There's also hundreds of bills that we're advocating for in Sacramento for new initiatives that may cost us more money. There's no money in there for that either. There's no money for a number of things. Now, are we going to sit down here and state every fact that we know to say there's no money for certain initiatives? That alone to me says that there's another agenda here other than stating a statement of fact. But what I'm most concerned about, is that tomorrow in the papers, it's going to say, council votes to state specifically there's no money for the mayor's initiative. The council does not support the mayor's initiative. Yesterday there was some discussion, somebody was betting somebody. I'll bet anybody in here that that's going to be the message tomorrow. And what's going to be picked up by the public? The public's going to say the council does not support the mayor's initiative. And what's worse than that, the public is going to get that message only after a few minutes of discussion, maybe a couple of hours now. With such a profound change on the table, this council and the public deserve and should thoroughly discuss the initiative. We're not giving any justice to this if we just put this in the budget document and the public reads from that the council is not supportive. I think we should discuss it. We should have committee hearings on this, but we should only do it after we have control of what the message is going to be tomorrow in the newspapers. And I'll bet anybody that that is going to be the message tomorrow in the newspapers if we vote to put this in the budget. And that should not be the message, because after all, have any of you really seen the plan? No. Have any of you really think about what the plan is other than having our own gut feeling right now? We and the public deserve to have a thorough discussion. And there was another action we took yesterday, which was to send to committee, Mr. Miller, what was it that we sent to committee tomorrow?
It was a discussion of a legislative position relative to any change in state law for governance, that the city's general fund be protected.
Okay. Now, there was another item separate from this one that was sent to committee. I may or may not agree with that, but I think the responsible thing to do for us is to have a thorough discussion on issues of such profound importance for the city, such as us going over and being somewhat provide more oversight over the $12 billion budget at LAUSD. I don't want to send the public the wrong message tomorrow by saying, hey, we oppose the mayor's initiative for us to be more responsible for that much amount of money, and more importantly, for the education of our kids. Let's slow down. Let's talk about this in a more responsible manner.
Ms. Gruhl for her first time, and then Mr. Smith and Mr. Labange.
And I'll just be brief. I think that my point was that we should send it to committee and have the kind of discussion. But I'm not sure we should get, and I appreciate what Mr. Smith said about something that we talk about that's happening in the future and how we're going to address it in the budget. But that occurred a long time ago. It didn't occur 5 o'clock at the end of the budget day, where we have not had the kind of discussion I believe is important to have on an issue as important as this. And so I don't think we want to start a precedent of kind of, and I was calling it the anti-budget budget, which is here are all the things we're not going to fund or we don't think we're going to include. I asked Mr. Parks, the NFL football stadium, huge issue for the city of Los Angeles. We don't have an item in the budget that says we are not funding anything related to the NFL, but there are lots of things that we are doing to support to do that. And so I think that that's where I come from is I want to have the discussion. This is too important an issue to not have it be discussed in committee, where we want to go, what kinds of impacts it's going to have, what is going to be the future of our educational system. It seems like a simple statement, but I think as Mr. Reyes said, it becomes bigger than that. And that's why some of us are saying we do not want to have any impression be made out into the public of where this body is going one way or another, because we feel it's an important issue that needs to be discussed in depth in the committee process, which is an important aspect of this city council, is to be able to have that kind of debate. And so it has unintended consequences, and I don't want to set the precedent of the anti-budget budget each year where we list those things. And I was trying to think of the example, and the NFL was the one that I came up with, is to an issue that is important to the city, is important that we're discussing, but is not included in our budget document to say we are not going to use any taxpayers' money to do that.
Mr. Smith, followed by Mr. Labange.
Well, to correct some of the statements made by some of my colleagues, first of all, there are a number of things in the budget that we say we are not going to fund, and you'll find them in the GCP, things that were funded in the past that have been carried on GCP with no dollar amounts. So we have done that. There's a precedent there. To Mr. Huizar, I can only say, you're wrong in saying that those functions of the mayor that are going on today aren't in the budget. They are very clearly in the budget. They're in the mayor's budget. The staffing of those jobs are in the budget. They're delineated as staff jobs for those purposes, so those do appear. To Mr. Labange, you asked the question, how much? I actually brought that motion in a few months ago. City clerk is almost ready to release it. It's already over $15 million a year of subsidies from our budget that goes to LA Unified School District in numerous programs that we run, like DOT, crossing guards for one, $11 million. So we are doing that. And I believe we need to discuss those, whether they're right or wrong. We all have our opinion on that. But we need to show that in the budget, that there is a subsidy going to LA Unified School District, and it's a $50 million subsidy. And those are things we need to start talking about around here that we've ignored for a long time. They're hidden in departmental budgets. And so those things need to come forward in the budget. They need to be realized that there is a commitment there, and how much it is, because it is a magnificent, large commitment to education. So I think there's great precedent to answer those questions. First of all, we are doing that. Those positions are there. Ms. Gruhl, those are the kind of things that we will talk about as this plan develops, but we need to put in the budget the realization that this is going to come due, and we got to talk about it someday. So why run and hide from it now? Let's address it now and say, right now, there's no money in here, but we are spending $50 million on LA Unified for other things, but let's talk about that in the future when we get the mayor's plan. Let's just put it in now. There's nothing to hide.
Mr. Labange.
I think, Mr. Parks, you going to speak on this issue?
That's the facts.
I just want to say, to answer, just I spoke yesterday, what Ms. Gruhl spoke of on the National Football League 3 years ago, Mr. Parks put a motion in, is that correct, Mr. Parks? No general fund, so that was done in offset of that, so that for the record. Here's the charter. We have some educational issues in the charter, right?
We do.
We have some relationship to that. Are we going to have a discussion about the schools at some time, you think, Mr. CLA?
I would imagine.
And how are we going to have that discussion? Are there some motions pending? I haven't seen them on issues related to this.
Well,
I know the Joint Commission.
Well, there's the motion that Mr. Smith referred to. Issues come up frequently. Obviously, the discussion you've had several times about the Human Relations Commission and their role in diffusing situations in schools and the desire to get reimbursed for that. It comes up not infrequently, and it really is kind of an ad hoc basis. I would certainly assume that that if there is legislation on the state level relative to governance, there will be substantial discussion here.
Right. But we will have to bring that apart. I think when we do that, I think we then focus on it at that time. Or I'm sure all of us are thinking independently right now. Because I don't necessarily agree with everything what I've read in the newspaper, what the mayor has proposed about the Los Angeles schools. And I would like a discussion. I'd like some input and discussion from the mayor's office to see where there's common ground. I read in the paper today where the southeast Los Angeles County cities, Bell and Southgate, et cetera, Cudahy, want to talk about their own independence, similar movement. But also I'd like to find out, how it all started, how the LA Unified had started altogether. Anyway, with that in mind, I think we should look at that, past history too, but as Mr. Smith said in his motion too, the number of departments, which rightfully so. That's our job as a city. It's their job to run a district and how they run the district and how it operates. So look forward to the continued discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labange. That closes our debate, unless anybody else wishes to be heard. Are folks clear about what we're voting on? Okay. All right. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
7 ayes, 7 no.
No, we have an absence today. An excused absence. Yes, Mr. Parks? You'll change? Sorry?
My machine's not working.
Oh, you're, okay. Mr. Parks should have been recorded as a no vote. Let's try that again then. That we had a problem yesterday with the voting machine in it too. Let's open the roll. Everybody please vote now. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
6 ayes, 8 noes.
Okay. That does not pass. Still is with us, folks, just so you know. No, it's now, now it's gone. Okay. With the 8 votes against, it is now done. Okay, can we return to items 2 and 3, please?
Mr. President, the reports have been circulated now on items 2 and 3.
Ms. Perry?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We discussed item 2 this morning in Energy and Environment Committee. We had a full attendance by the committee, and our conclusion was that we weren't going to debate the amount of the increase or whether an increase was merited or not. We had concerns about the process, and I'll have the staff make the report and then come back to you with what we recommended to resolve this matter. And I believe that goes with 2 and with 3.
Okay. Welcome, Commissioner. So we can go ahead and hear from Commissioner Patsouris.
Good morning, Mr. President, honorable members. My name is Nick Patsouris. I'm a member of the DWP Commission. On my left is Chief Operating Officer Power, and on my right, Mr. Marvin Moon, Chief of Distribution. I'm going to be very succinct. The issue before you is the interests of the ratepayers versus the interests of the giant cable companies. As you know, for the first time in history, this commission is spending days, not hours, in going through the budget process. We are taking painstaking efforts. We're going through tooth and nail. We are cutting the budget to the bone. So if we're going to raise the rates, we are going to do it with straight face. If we are going to ask our ratepayers for a sacrifice, if we are going to ask, and we are asking our employees to participate in that effort, we expect and we will ask the contractors, the consultants, and the vendors to participate in this effort. Point of information, the cost today of the pole attachment is $10. I was told by your staff that in 1996, the fee was $25. However, the same interests that are here today to oppose the increase in the fee, in 1999 they prevailed and they reverted the $25 to $10. The issue is very clear. We need the money. The ratepayers need the money. And we are open now to these two questions.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
You have before you the environmental, the E2 committee report. The CLA does recommend that you veto the action and send it back. I want to be clear, the CLA is not asserting that the fees are unreasonable. I think the concern is largely about the fair and open process, which of course this council has pounded on us relative to fee attachments. There is a report, my understanding, that is still being completed, a survey of other pole attachment fees, et cetera, et cetera. So we simply believe that they should be reconsidered. We're not suggesting that the fee is not reasonable, it shouldn't be readopted, but it's more the public process. We also are suggesting that a couple of other issues be looked at, such as maintenance issues, the issues of tagging and cleaning the poles, and some of the other issues that could perhaps be rolled into the fee attachment. We need to look at those issues. And finally, just the process of licensing themselves. So it is based on a public process, not a substantive disagreement with what the board wants to do.
Thank you. Mr. Garcetti, followed by Mr. Rosendahl, followed by Ms. Perry.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And I want to thank the board and the department for looking at this first, because you are an activist board and taking, I think, your responsibilities more seriously than any board we've seen in some time. And we're seeing the fruits of that, and that should not go unnoticed by the public, and certainly is not unnoticed by this body as well. A couple questions I have. And I don't know if we have a city attorney who can address them. I wanted to restate what I said a little bit in committee today, which was I wanted to be clear with, and it's not just the cable industry, I think there's a number of folks who use the poles, that all the information I have seen, there is going to be an increase. And let's make no mistake about that. Because it looks very clear that I haven't seen any information either from other cities, from our own costs, from the modeling that the department has begun to do, and the research the CLA has done that would indicate otherwise. Process, though, is an important thing, and I had questions about either Prop 218 or any other challenges to make sure that if there was a legal challenge, which we could reasonably expect, if we don't, dot all of our i's and cross our t's, what the basis for that is. I'm still unclear about that, because what was then presented today in committee was that we might have, not have to make any nexus at all, that we at least have the power, and I'm not saying that we would abuse that power necessarily, but it's more the marketplace rather than having to make a nexus between cost and fee. Mr. Miller or a member of the City Attorney's Office who might be able to clarify whether under Prop 218 or any other taxing law, are we open at all to litigation based on any price, or could we, hypothetically, we're not doing this, say it's $1 million a poll and we have that right? And one of the things I asked about was, with the cable franchise agreements, is there anything written into that about access to DWP polls and a reasonable price or anything like that?
Stan Snyder, LA City Attorney's Office. We do not believe that Prop 218 is an issue. This is a licensing of our facilities. In terms of other franchise agreements, I quite frankly have not looked at the franchising agreement, so I can't answer that question. In terms of charging $1 million a poll, no, I don't think we could charge $1 million a poll, because that might be deemed to be a barrier to entry into our market. We have to come up with something that is reasonable, not a barrier to competition. In this case, they picked, I think it's $30. Anaheim has $25. So that's not going to be a barrier, although it is a significant increase over what we're currently charging.
So it's the opinion of the City Attorney's Office that anything reasonable, even if that doesn't necessarily reflect our exact costs, is legal, defensible, and appropriate for us to decide as policy-making bodies?
Yes, and they're entitled to make a profit, because DWP is in the business of making money. They are supported by ratepayer funds. It's not taxing funds.
Right.
Over here on the city side, it's all tax revenue, so it's a different analysis.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Rosendahl?
Thank you, Madam President. Jerry, again, explain this veto business. What are you talking about?
Well, under Prop 245, you can simply reject an action or affirm an action. You can't change it.
Why are you recommending we veto it?
Because we had concerns about the process.
Explain those concerns.
Well, in essence, it was, the initial action was taken, my understanding is, it was taken during a time in which department staff had not completed its review of surrounding jurisdictions and what those poll attachment fees are. It had to do with timing of notice and awareness of the community also, the cable community in essence, of the consideration of raising the fees. So as I indicated, it's a public hearing, public notice, and again, I'm not suggesting there was a violation of the Brown Act either. It is, from a policy standpoint, we are suggesting that the comparative rate study be completed, both for purposes of asserting the reasonableness of the poll attachment fees, and that sufficient time be given for there to be a response from the public.
Nick, you want to respond to what he's saying?
I don't want to get into a dialogue here about the process. I believe was correct. It went from a contracts committee to the full board. It was posted, so anyone who is interested in the WP business can access it. And Mr. Deaton presented to the board a comparative analysis when the vote was taken.
And so at that point, you decided to go forward with it?
Yeah, the board voted unanimously to go forward to it.
Councilmember, if I may add, Henry Martinez. Yeah. Henry Martinez, Chief Operating Officer. Our lease agreements with the various requesters for service has a clause that there's a 90-day or 180-day notification when the fees are changed. And indeed, that was one of the processes that I think has been addressed in committee as well as now, that we do need to notify them, those renters of our polls, basically 90 days in advance or 180, depending on the contract, of the changes. Now, furthermore, since the last report, our staff has calculated and used very specific models of cost on a cost basis to determine what would be our cost to provide the service. And the numbers are definitely far more than the $10 that we've been charging. And
What do you think the costs are?
well, the numbers that we ran, there's two ways of looking at this issue. One is a new capital investment of a pole and the depreciation over 30 years of the life of the pole and the space that you would be renting, in essence, on that pole over that period of time. The other one is the operation and maintenance cost. What does it cost us to maintain that pole over the duration of the contract? On both cases, the cost would range between $22.50 up to $25.
That's the real cost?
That's the cost that we calculate based upon the models that we've used, which are supportable. And frankly, when we look at the cost for the department just to maintain our poles, they have increased since 1999 substantially. And so one of the issues that we have, or one of the offers that we have made to the committee, is to provide that information and data to back up the calculations with real numbers and establish a baseline as to how these costs are justifiable and indeed, at least at a minimum, recover the cost of the department for those services.
Who else is on the polls that would be subject to the same potential increase of usage?
Well, we have the various companies from Adelphia, Centered BWM, we have Champion Broadband Services, Charter Communications, Comcast, County of Los Angeles.
Besides the cable companies, is there anybody else on those polls?
We have City.
Don't forget there's the ownership issue too. They can buy.
Yeah. We have Galpin Ford, which is a business. We have Thurder Saliva is another. We have Texaco. So we have a number of other non-quote-unquote communication companies that rent our poles. So it's not solely a cable issue. It's really an issue of utilization of the poles and a fair equity of return.
Jerry, the veto, if we vote yes on the veto, then what happens to the time frame of what the commission is suggesting today?
Well, they would have to, in essence, re-agendize the matter and take an action again.
So they could do that within a short period of time, and they would have, by now, all the surveys and reports done, and it could go through that process?
That would be entirely up to the policy, and obviously the Brown Act, but entirely up to the policy of lead time on putting matters before the board.
Yeah, please.
Excuse me, Councilman. Actually, I'm sorry. On that issue, actually, the commission did not have to act on this issue. The general manager could have started instituting a new rate, and as these expired or new people came, he could have begun instituting it. So there are two options here. One is the board can do a study and do further action, or the other is that the general manager could start inserting these into these contracts, and then they would be subject to approval by the board and or council, depending on the length.
Nick, you were going to say something?
Look, we haven't done that for what? Up 10 years? It won't hurt us to wait for a month. We'll take it back, vote, and address everybody's concerns.
You would?
Yeah,
sure.
I mean,
Yeah,
what we are going to get in the context with you guys?
Yeah. One thing, colleagues, just as a backdrop, not on the particulars of the veto, but the particulars of an industry. I had been in that industry. Everybody knows that, or who knows anything about what I did with a television show and so on and so forth. You're living in an age now that's very interesting. If you saw this morning's headlines in the business section, the Congress of the United States is talking about a la carte and looking at the notion of how Washington deals with refranchising or deals with telecommunications. Same time, the telephone companies are looking at jumping into the business, and at the same time, the satellite people are already in the business. So what you will hear in a very, I would say, outgoing way by the cable industry is that their competitiveness becomes a disadvantage against those other two vendors if the price of the poles go up. But when Nick makes the point, or your staff, Henry, does, that it costs us $25 to put the pole on to begin with, should the DWP be subsidizing anybody? But the issue from the cable industry will be competitiveness in the marketplace of America today, which is much different than what it was 10 years ago. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Mr. Weiss, followed by Ms. Hahn, Mr. Parks, and then Mr. Perry.
Thank you, Madam President. principal reason that I have heard from our advisors for the 245 has been their citation of the Brown Act. I'd like to ask the City Attorney's Office to provide us with their legal opinion on whether the board's action complied with the Brown Act.
We believe it did.
And you need to speak into the mic.
I'm sorry. We believe it did in the April 18th agenda.
It's either you or it's the mic guy, but it's not.
I'm sorry. We believe that it did comply with the Brown Act in the April 18th agenda. It indicated recommendation of Contracts Committee member to change the rate of pole attachment anchor fees. It didn't specify the amount, but that's not required. It does specify what the subject matter is so that anyone looking at the agenda could reasonably tell. And then in the later May 2nd agenda, it actually listed the specific amounts. So we don't see a problem there.
Okay, so the City Attorney's Office has told, Mr. Miller, you want to respond to the City Attorney's Office?
Yes, I did not, I believe I said that we do not believe there was a violation of the Brown Act.
Okay, so
We don't have a question whether it was properly noticed. Our issue is when the action had taken place, it was properly noticed. However, initially the department had not completed a comparative analysis yet. It had to do with not the notice provisions, but the due diligence that had occurred and the awareness of the people that would be affected of the rate increase. We do not question whether it's a Brown Act issue.
One thing I have noticed in my couple years here has been how targets sort of shift over time and issues. This was brought forth as, was ballyhooed as a Brown Act issue. And so I'm happy that we've just moved that completely off the table. It frankly should never have been on the table. Let's ask about rates then. This was an action to move the rates to $30. What were they previously set at?
The previous rates were set, we had two fees, one for attachments, which is $10, and another fee for anchors, which is $5. So these are two separate fees.
Had the rates ever been raised before?
As it was identified in a report from the CLA's office, that we used to have a $25 fee for attachments back prior to 1999, and they were rolled back in 1999 to $10.
So the cable companies, let me just see if I understand this correctly. The cable companies of Los Angeles got a rate rollback from DWP, but the ratepayers of Los Angeles potentially might get a rate increase because when DWP has costs that it should not incur. I mean, that's sort of the bottom line here.
You got it right.
Okay. I do think that it is appropriate to have had this public policy discussion. We've had the public policy discussion with the motion going through here, but I think we ought to cast a vote for the ratepayers of the city and not for the cable companies, and vote against the 245 motion.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Ms. Hahn, followed by Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, I don't think this is about the cable companies or the ratepayers. In fact, I haven't always been on the cable companies' side. I take them on when I feel it's appropriate. To me, what this is about, which is why I want to send a strong message to the Commission, I want to veto your action on April 18th, where you, in all appearance, arbitrarily raise these rates, one from 10 to 30 and the other from 5 to 15. And it is, to me, it's a pattern in practice at DWP to decide arbitrarily, whether it's the ratepayers or the cable companies, that you're going to raise the rates. You've decided that you need more revenue for whatever reason, and you raise the rates, and then the stakeholders find out about it afterwards. And that is why I want to send a strong message to you that I think you ought to change the way you do things. You ought to make sure that all stakeholders at the table, whether it's neighborhood councils, ratepayers, cable companies, who's ever in a partnership with the City of Los Angeles. And frankly, we're in a partnership with cable companies. It's called our franchise agreements. I mean, we're in a partnership. We try to get some things out of them. They try to get some things out of us. But the way you went about doing this was typical of the way you just decide it's time to raise rates, and whether or not it's based on any outside audit or authority that tells you this is the proper way to raise it, you decide to raise it anyway. So to me, it's really not about ratepayers, really not about cable companies. To me, it is still about the Commission. And it is still about DWP, who continues to sort of arbitrarily make these decisions to raise rates, and then after the fact, you let the people who are most impacted by that, ultimately, that'll probably end up being the cable subscribers. We'll probably get it anyway. But bring people to the table. Do it in a thoughtful manner. Prove to the people that you're raising the rates why you're doing it, what the necessity of it is, and how you're going to go about doing it. So that's why, members, this is exactly what I want to do today. This is what 245 is all about. And thank God that it was a commission action and it wasn't just the general manager making this decision. But hopefully Ron Deaton can hear us loud and clear and know that, again, it is against our spirit to do things like this with the stakeholders who have a stake in DWP. So I'm going to say loud and clear, I think that was the wrong way to do it. I'm going to vote to veto your action, and I'm hopefully that you'll do it in a more appropriate manner, like I believe you're going to be doing every time you try to raise the rates of the subscribers, of the ratepayers in the city of Los Angeles.
Mr. Parks, followed by Ms. Perry.
Thank you, Madam President. Let me just ask a couple of questions. One of the things in looking at the different reports that I was unable to decipher was that it appeared the rate increase was going to raise revenue about $1.2 million, but there was never a figure that said how much money are we getting otherwise? How much do all of these franchises bring into the DWP?
Councilmember, the total number of contracts we have currently with the various companies that are releasing our polls amount to 800,000 total.
So it's 800,000 total?
I'm sorry, 600,000.
Okay, and that's for how many, so obviously we're not using all of the polls that you own.
That's correct. This is a small portion of our polls for the
Now,
city.
the other thing I was wondering about is that it appeared that when and you explained one part, when it went back to DWP to administer this, that there was also some caveats in it, but it doesn't appear we covered them. Is that it appeared by the ordinance that the council was supposed to be involved in anything over 1.1% or something. Is that in compliance, or are we over that, or what?
We believe that the contracts that have been authorized by the department are in compliance. Now, there's a question about the aggregation of a number of contracts. They may exceed that 0.5% that is specified in the ordinance, and we're going to go back and verify.
Can you talk in the mic? I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. We're going to verify that what the report that came from the CLA's office identified that there was potentially a group of contracts to three different contracts to one provider or one renter, in essence, may have aggregated the numbers above the 0.5%. So we're going to clarify that issue and correct it accordingly.
Okay. The other thing is that just fell through the cracks as far as the renewal of cost over every 5 years? Is that just something that went by the wayside since '99?
No, Councilperson. A difference. Nobody was minding the store. Nobody was minding the store.
Okay, so I mean, it just fell through the cracks. I mean, it wasn't that, it was just an oversight.
Well, not necessarily. As I said, in '96, it was $10, $25. And then, actively, someone pulled it back to 10.
Okay, and there's no record of how that occurred? I mean, do we have records in the department that show what the debate and how that occurred?
There is some information about how the rates were moved or changed. I don't believe we have anything in writing. It's just anecdotal information and verbal discussions that happened within the department back in 1999.
Okay. Let me just ask you a couple of parochial things. One of the issues, and particularly along the right-of-way in the 8th and 9th District along Slauson, we see a significant number of broken and abandoned poles. Is that our responsibility, even though it's a MTA right-of-way? Is that the city's as far as water and power, or who's responsible for picking those up or repairing them?
Well, first of all, if it's the right-of-way of the department, that we have a right-of-way through that, and I have to go back and look at the actual...
It's right along the train tracks.
...geographic, but it may depend as to who has the right-of-way and who owns the poles that are located there.
Okay.
And I have to get back to you and get the specifics on that.
The other thing that plagues and I believe several districts, and I know it plagues mine, is that wherever there's a poll, somebody finds it as a free place to advertise. So we get these tremendous number of signs for different events. We get the issue of people throwing shoes over the wires. We get the graffiti on them. Is that something that the department is responsible for? Is that something that we expect, do we have another service that's involved that would take care of that? Because all these unauthorized attachments just create a dilemma for the council offices to figure out how to address that.
Well, I think that issue, the maintenance portion, it is illegal to attach anything to those power poles that are not licensed, number one. The shoes over the power lines, I think this is one of the recommendations that CLA provided in their report, and we believe that's a good one that we can implement into the contracts going forward.
Okay. One thing, Ms. Perry, let me ask you, and it's your report that we're looking at for 2 and 3, whether we can add a direction and ask the Department of Water and Power, when they go back and look at this issue, whether they can determine whether there's an ability to create a local fund for each of the council offices that would take care of the ground level cleanup and maintenance around these poles and attachments that are on the pole, so that we'd have the ability to get that done without council offices having to go forward and go within their own accounts or their street furniture or their different cleanup activities as far as graffiti, that maybe in this process we can create such a fund. And so if you'd accept that as a friendly amendment, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Our, I believe, final speaker is Ms. Perry. Ms. Perry.
Okay.
Mr. Weezer pushed his button as well, so go ahead. Do you want to wait for, you want Mr. Weezer
that's
before
fine.
you, or
No,
you want to go?
let him go ahead. I'll just close it off.
I thought you might want to close. Okay, Mr. Weezer.
Great.
I thought I pressed my button. As I was sitting here, I was listening to two different things. Was there a comparative survey completed? Because I read somewhere that there wasn't, but then the CLA, I think, was mentioning that there was a
There was.
There is a survey completed.
Mr. Deaton presented to the commission the survey.
There was a survey. Was it conducted by the CLA or your own internal?
Our own, Mr. Deaton.
And that was a comparative survey comparing to other fees throughout the state.
Correct.
And where are we in comparison to other public utilities throughout the state? Please hold my time.
Some we are within reach, and some we are higher.
So we're higher. We average? Can we say that?
Average, we're below. We're in the lower half.
Okay. How about actual costs? I mean, that was a comparative survey. How about the actual costs? Where are we on that?
The department ran a study the last week or two, and based on owning and maintaining cost, they come out with about $24.50.
That's our cost, $24.
And maintaining, yes.
And 50 cents. And when was the analysis completed, the comparative study?
The comparative study was completed less than a month ago.
Less than a month?
Yeah, I would say about 2 or 3 weeks ago, because we submitted that to the commission at the last board meeting in April, I believe.
Okay. And so when the commission made its decision, it had a comparative study before it? No, you did not?
No.
Okay. So you didn't have the study before you when you made the decision?
But we had the comparative analysis when we voted.
But you had the comparative...
It went from contracts committee.
Okay.
I was the culprit.
Yeah.
A recommendation to the full board, and at that time, Mr. Deaton had a comparative analysis.
Is there any other additional information that you wish you would have before you in making this decision again, should it go back to you?
Mr. Weezer, that's why I said I have no problem if the council sends it back to the commission. We have now all the facts and figures, and at the next board meeting, 2 weeks from yesterday, we'll vote again.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Perry?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Again, just to close off, the concerns that were raised initially, that there was no written staff report made available to the public prior to the meeting that described the recommendations made by the Board of Water and Power, that we needed to make sure that there was opportunity for not only public dialogue on behalf of the industry and those affected, but that it was fully and duly noted by the public and that people had a chance to give their input. The DWP survey of comparative rates at the time was not complete, and it was the determination of the committee that at that time the thorough analysis of what other municipal agencies and investor-owned utilities charge, we felt that that was very important. On a technical clarification, the CLA drafted a second motion for the 245 because on May the 2nd, after first assertion of jurisdiction motion, another motion was requested, a second motion was requested asking for the same increases in poll fees. We wanted to eliminate confusion because we were concerned that technically the council would not have jurisdiction over the second poll increase. So this was done to eliminate confusion. I was out on an AQMD matter that day, so the motion was introduced on May the 5th by Councilman Cardenas at my request and brought to committee for discussion. So I hope that clarifies everything. And if there are no further speakers, I'd like to call the question.
Thank you. There are no other speakers. The item before us is the committee report from this morning, CLA report. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
13 ayes, 1 no.
That item has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, you can make an introduction.
Colleagues, I would love to make an introduction today. We have the some seniors from Banning High School in Wilmington with their teacher, Kathleen Hall. She teaches economics. They have come up with a business plan to develop sort of a plaza somewhere in Wilmington. They've been meeting with our planning department today to discuss their business plan, their marketing plan, and their development of a plaza. I'm very impressed with these young people from Wilmington, and it would be great to work on that project and make sure that that happens someday. Congratulations and welcome to City Hall.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Mr. Wiesar.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to do a technical correction. On item number 14 that we just voted on, can I amend that or motion to receive and file the item? We've discussed that twice already, and as opposed to continue to have it lay on the table, I would just like to, we took a vote twice. You know, we could all just respect those wishes and move on and receive and file that item. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we need a second for that?
Yes, is there a second to that?
Mr. Weiss, okay. And Mr. City Attorney has advised us that it's appropriate to receive and file that item.
That's correct,
Thank
Madam
you.
President. It's technically still on the desk because it failed of adoption and was not rejected. It received 8 no votes, but that is not the same thing as an affirmative vote to reject it.
So, Madam Clerk, the item now before us, colleagues, is to receive and file item number 14. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
14 ayes.
That item's been received and filed. Next item.
Item 11 was called special for cards from the public.
Valinda Jo Wright. Valinda Jo Wright, she's not here. So that closes public comment. Madam Clerk, open the roll on this item. Oh, excuse me. Yes, Mr. Wiesar?
Can I speak on this item, please, Madam
Yes.
President? This item 11, correct?
Yes, we're on item number 11.
Yes, this is a motion for reward that we put forward, a $75,000 reward for 2 deaths that occurred a couple of weeks ago in Boyle Heights. It was a very tragic accident, and many of you may have seen the reports in the news, and it's a very tragic event for a family and for a community. A family was driving home in their van after a high school concert where their son had played with the Los Angeles County High School for the Arts. The van itself was struck by a speeding car, a yellow Caprice. As a result, the driver and the passenger, the mother and the father, Alejandro and Esther Posada, died at the scene. Their children, 9 and 18-year-old boys, along with a 16-year-old friend, were hospitalized and survived. However, council members and public, this was not just an accident where a yellow Caprice had hit the van and caused the deaths of this mother and father, but just prior to this, the yellow Caprice with its occupants were en route to Lancaster and exited the 5 freeway on Grande Vista and to make a brief stop. A few moments later, they were under gunfire by gang members who were at the park. The Caprice carrying the 3 individuals sped off to avoid further gunfire from the gang members, and unfortunately, as this Caprice was avoiding the gunfire, they collided with a Posada's family silver Toyota van. Because of the unique circumstances leading to the accident, the case has been declared a homicide, and there has been very few leads in this case. We ask that if anybody has information about this, to please come forward to the police. They will remain anonymous, and there is a $75,000 award with any information leading to the arrest and conviction of those responsible for these tragic deaths. This reward is important to the community because it will not only bring justice to the 2 individuals who lost their lives, but it will also put individuals who so boldly and brazenly fired at a moving car in this community that is plagued with gang warfare. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Huizar, and thank you for getting the word out about that. We hope that some folks will come forward now that reward is in place. Pursuant to the vote, if we can open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Let's go forthwith on that, please. Next item.
Item 13 was called for cards from the public.
Okay, we have now item 13 of Linda Jo Wright, I think has left. Robert Fitzpatrick will be our first speaker on this item. Welcome.
Excuse me. My name is Bob Fitzpatrick. I live in Bill Rosenthal's district. He is a neighbor of ours, and we worked very hard to get Bill elected, and we are very glad we did. We have experienced that the city of we live adjacent to the city of Santa Monica. We have experienced the city of Santa Monica pretty much ignores the city of LA in certain matters. They're exporting their traffic into Los Angeles. They are presently in talks with the city of LA to export their homeless into Los Angeles. And for years, they have been exporting their fumes emanating from taxing and idling jets into Los Angeles. We just ask that that we stand up, that this council does stand up to the city of Santa Monica and support AB 2501. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Martin Rubin is our next speaker, and Joan Winters Rubin will follow that.
Yes, Martin Rubin. I'm Director of Concerned Residents Against Airport Pollution, and I want to first thank Councilman Rosendahl for bringing this item up and for doing a tremendous amount in the less than 1 year that he's been in office to address the concerns of so many residents about the impacts from Santa Monica Airport. Santa Monica Airport is bordered by Los Angeles. More than half of the airport is actually bordered by Los Angeles, and yet there is no representation, even in an advisory capacity, on their airport commission. We have, the residents east of the airport in Los Angeles have been for approximately 10 years trying to get this air pollution from the idling jets addressed. And yet Santa Monica has basically sat on the issue, and it has come to, we thank Ted Lieu for letting us sponsor this bill to require Santa Monica to record the idle taxi times that will be used in modeling studies that will show the extent of the pollution. It's a first step. It's a necessary step. And as former Speaker Bob Fitzpatrick pointed out, in some ways this is like a historical moment I feel very proud to have Los Angeles on board with addressing our concerns so many residents have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Joan Winters Rubin is next, and then Susan Follett.
I would like to urge you to support this bill. One thing that's disturbing is the mayor's opposition, the Santa Monica mayor. We checked it out. It did not go through the city council to write this letter of opposition. It did not go through a public process. The people, none of us went to City Hall to talk because he pushed it through without having a city council meeting. I hope if you did receive anything about opposition that you do see through the smoke screen and mirrors, because there's a lot of smoke screens and mirrors around the city of Santa Monica and how they're standoffishly refusing to have this air pollution problem checked. They will say, well, they're going with the Air Coast Quality Management, everything is fine. This is a different study. This is a study for odors, for emissions, and it desperately needs to be done. We're urgently, neighbors all around the airport, this isn't a frivolous bill. We're concerned about health issues. We're on the other side, we're not concerned that much about noise. We're near an airport, we don't like the noise. And we're getting a lot of jets coming in. But we're concerned and we're getting angry. I hope you all understand that this is a very bad problem that we're affecting in Rancho Park, Cheviot Hills, with the airport. But the fumes are in Santa Monica, West LA, Mar Vista. And we're getting a lot of support, and we do hope that you will give us your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker on this is Susan Follett.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Susan Follett, and I live approximately half a mile east of the Santa Monica Airport, where our neighborhood, where my home, is invaded by fumes on a daily basis throughout the day, day after day. It continues to be worse and worse as time goes on. I'm assuming that the jet traffic is probably continually increasing, because the distinct smell that I notice is the jet fuel, the jet emissions. This airport is unique, and yes, it is singled out on this bill because it is unique, because of the westerly breezes that carry the emissions and the odors into our neighborhood, because of the way the jets are positioned on the runway there. They are within 100 yards of where people live, of homes. And these people have it a whole lot worse than I do. And I have it bad enough to where I want to move, and I think about moving every day. Some of the complaints, the health concerns, the ill effects that our neighbors and community members are experiencing is burning eyes, burning throat, difficulty breathing, repeated asthma attacks, prolonged bronchitis, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and I may be leaving some things out, but there's a serious health concern here, and it's physically impossible just to hold your breath and wait for the FAA to take positive action, because they're not going to do it, and we have to just do the study and put it in their face and make some changes, some positive changes, because people are getting sick.
Thank you very much. That closes our public comment for this. Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, colleagues, for listening to four of my constituents in the 11th District.
We have one more card that was just given to me, Mr. Rosendahl. Do you want to hear that one?
Sure,
Okay.
I'd love to before
I'm sorry,
I speak.
we'll hold your time. Mike Donnie.
I'm sorry. Good afternoon. My name is Mike Medani. I'm from Los Angeles Taxi Cab Drivers Organization, LATDO. This is a very important issue for taxi cab drivers because at the holding lot, we have a lot of noise and we have a lot of fume. We already made complaint, and nobody seems that they're concerned about this because the drivers, they have to stay sometimes in the holding lot for 2 hours, and we are next to the runway, and we have this problem every day. And we already discussed with LAWA. We requested that they relocate the holding lot, and they usually say there is a lot of money involved, and we think ATS makes enough money that they can invest that money to relocate the holding lot. This is one of the issues. We have a lot of other issues that we concern, especially the gas price. Then drivers are already frustrated. They want to go on a strike. They're going to shut down the city and holding lot and LAX on Monday if City Hall or the Department of Transportation is not listening to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rosendahl.
Thanks again, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to thank the constituents who came here today, who care about community. Bob Fitzpatrick is living a little bit south of the airport there, and Marty and Joan and Susan live a little bit east of it. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues on the council, Santa Monica is in the heart of the 11th district, and is in the heart of it, we feel its pulsation throughout our district. Be it the gridlock that we experience where people are going to jobs in Santa Monica, be it the airport with its noise and with its pollution. My constituents are right. We have absolutely nothing to say about that airport, but yet we're the ones who get the pollution and get the noise. The pollution is extremely serious. In the last 10 years, the jets have dramatically increased. And in their dramatic increase, they idle them and they get them ready for takeoffs. And all that fumes goes into West LA and into Mar Vista and has dramatically impacted the quality of life and, most importantly, the health of my constituents. When I've raised this issue to Santa Monica, it's like hitting up against a brick wall. Here's the good news. The political leadership in the area has been focused on it. When I ran for office, that was one of my issues, was the Santa Monica Airport. When Ted Lieu ran for office, he walked in the neighborhood and saw the same issues, health issues that I did. And most recently, 2 weeks ago, Jane Harmon, who's running for re-election, has even talked with the FAA about that whole strategy of that airport. So there's a lot of political will there now. This piece of legislation, by you supporting it today, is a very simple piece of legislation. It just says, and let me just requote it, the City of Los Angeles hereby includes in its state legislative program support for the Lieu bill, which would require the Santa Monica Airport to monitor and record taxi, idle, approach and takeoff time of jet operations for 1 year commencing January 1, 2007, and to make this data available to the public for their review. That's all we're asking for, is to get a baseline. And colleagues, I would like a yes vote on this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosendahl. Seeing nobody else wishing to speak, let's prepare the roll on this item and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Mr. President, that concludes the items on the regular agenda. Do you wish to go into the special meeting?
Yes, please. Can you call the roll for the special meeting?
Cardenas, Gruel, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Padilla, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti, 12 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Okay. First item, please.
First item for which public hearing has been held.
Yes. Anybody wishing to call number 1 special? Mr. Parks? You want to call that special?
Yes.
Okay, hold on. Oh, you just have a quick amendment?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
We'd just like to ask a report back to Budget and Finance on the progress of the system and also the progress of city employees being trained to take over the maintenance of this system.
Okay, we'll add that. Anybody else wishing to be heard on 1? If not, please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next item.
Item 2 is an item for which public hearing has not been held.
Okay, we have a speaker card on that. Ms. Sylvia Hawkins on item number 2.
item number 2. This is a warning, a special warning to all book writers, books, maps of school kids' work and homework in all schools and libraries. For example, sitting next to me on yesterday was an old man that was not a book writer, used by councilmen and church leaders. They are using contact lenses that are permanent or peeled off to fake a picture shot or to take a Kodak picture of my original handwriting, to remove the lens from their eyes, to transfer it to a laptop publisher to steal for their own book. That is not their book. It was already done earlier. I wrote a book concerning Miracles Do Continue. As I wrote the book, I was in a car accident, transferred to Torrance Memorial Hospital. Now they took the book to London, and now the book is on sale. Dr. Wonder Style did not work. But we want everyone to be aware of these that are wearing glasses, that are wearing fake glasses, that lights up. My gift from Jesus Christ is real. When I click, it lights up. Now, when y'all click, y'all have fake lens on. These are not Jewish people. These are black people, all in this council. So I want you guys to be aware that we are aware of y'all faking and coming near me, taking a shot. This is real handwriting. Because y'all took my handwriting and made a book, we are aware of prime ministers, president of old that have done it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments on the map tract 54419 for the property lying easterly of Whitsett Avenue and northerly of Valley Spring Lane. If we can open the roll on that item, please. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Back to the regular meeting. Do we have any housekeeping?
Yes, Mr. President. Council has motions for posting and referral.
Those are posted and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Weiss requests to be excused June 27th and 28th for city business. That meets council policy.
He is excused.
Councilmember Smith requests to be excused to leave at 11:30 on July 11th and for the entire meetings, July 14th, 18th, 19th, and 21st for city business. That also meets council policy.
All right. Mr. Smith is excused as well.
And Councilmember Perry requests to be excused Wednesday, May 31st, and Tuesday, June 6th for personal business. A motion is required.
All right, I will move, and Mr. Rosendahl will second. Again, colleagues, when we have motions that are required, that means that we're under 12 members, so those are always dates that we need to be sure to be here. She's excused.
That does clear the desk.
Announcements, colleagues. On this Friday, we are down to a bare quorum of 10 members, so everybody who is here on Friday expected to be here from the beginning to the end. We will try to make that meeting move as swiftly as possible, of course, conditional on all of our participation in that, but just to let people know, we have a bare quorum, so every single member who is expected to be here on Friday should be here Friday on time, and we should have no early excuses or late arrivals. Any other announcements, Mr. Rosendahl? Oh. Go ahead, we'll start at this side. I thought you had one. Mr. LeBon.
On behalf of Councilmember Gruhl, we all got these nice bags on Bike to Work Week, which was successfully kicked off this week. It's a great opportunity to use a different mode of transportation. A lot of good information there. Share it with your deputies who are transportation and push that bikeway out the LA River to Cadoga Park.
Thank you very much, Mr. LeBon. Other announcements? Okay, I'm sorry. Other announcements? Ms. Hahn and then Mr. Parks.
I just want to let my colleagues know that I will not be here on Friday because I'm going to be one of the speakers at the Contract City Association meeting, where I'm going to be making a presentation on the Port of Los Angeles to all the cities in LA County to impress upon everyone the importance of America's port, but as well as the possible hazards of pollution, talk about goods movement, and hopefully everybody gets on board to fight with us as we keep that as an economic engine, but also work to make sure it is not a health risk for all of us.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hahn. Anybody else wishing? Oh, sorry, Mr. Parks.
say fight with us?
She said fight with us, I believe.
Oh, okay, whoa, okay, I just had one community notification. The last meeting of the South Los Angeles Community Forums hosted by the Children, Youth, and Family will be in District 8, Thursday, May 18th, 6 to 8 p.m., and it's going to be at the Epic Center, 3980 South Menlo.
Any other announcements, colleagues? If not, if I could please ask everybody in council chambers to rise for adjourning motions.
She wanted us to fight.
Anybody on this side? Mr. Parks?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President. Unfortunately, I have 3 adjourning motions. I'd ask that we adjourn in memory of Ryan Francis. He's a freshman point guard at USC. Just recently was the victim of gun violence while visiting his parents in Baton Rouge. He was only 19 years of age. He basically was in a car with 4 passengers, and another driver came up and shot him, and where he perished. He was a senior in high school. He averaged 22 points, 5 assists at Glen Oaks High School in Baton Rouge. In 2005, he led his team to a perfect 36-0 record for the state 4A title. He was named to the 2005 Louisiana Class 4A Player of the Year and was Most Valuable Player in the state tournament. He also was a 4A All-State Most Valuable Player, All-Metro, and All-Star in 2005. And as a junior, he was a 4A All-District Most Valuable Player and Best Defensive Player. He was born March 17th, 1987. He was undecided major at USC. He had many hobbies, primarily playing sports. His biggest sports hero was Byron Davis, a pro basketball player who attended UCLA. He was a point guard for USC last year with a record of 17-13, where he averaged 7 points a game and basically was the seventh leader in the league as far as assists. His ceremony for burial will be Saturday at 11 a.m. in Baton Rouge. The viewing was held on this Friday at 8 p.m. And the family's asking, in lieu of flowers, that donations be sent to the Ryan Francis Memorial Fund in care of the Dan Purcell Regional Bank in Baton Rouge.
All members.
The next one is someone that I think we all feel as though we know them, and that's Earl Woods, the father of Tiger Woods. He was a role model, career architect, cheerleader, and first coach for his son Tiger. He died early Wednesday, May 3rd, at his home in Cypress. He was battling cancer for the last several years. He was 74. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer in '98, underwent treatment. He told reporters in 2004 that the cancer had returned and spread throughout his body. About 10 years ago, he suffered a heart attack and underwent quadruple bypass. He was the president of the ETW Corporation that handled all of his son's business dealings, and also was the chair of the Tiger Woods Foundation, which just this past February, they opened the Tiger Woods Learning Center, a $25 million project in Anaheim for underprivileged children. Earl Woods had a reputation for his overriding influence in the development of his son as the top-ranked golfer. Just in a very short time, as we know, Tiger Woods is the #1 ranked golfer in the world. He's won over 48 titles or tour championships, and he started in the pro ranks since the age of 20. The father also has an accomplished record. He was born in 1932 in Kansas, one of 6 children. He's a graduate of Kansas State University. In fact, he was played on the baseball team as a catcher, became the first African-American baseball player to play in then the Big 8 Conference. He graduated with a bachelor's in '53. He then went into the military and rose to the rank of lieutenant colonel. He was a former Green Beret. He also had a very distinguished record and served 2 tours in the Vietnam War. He is certainly will be remembered for not only the legacy that he has given, but also his son. And so I'd like to adjourn in his memory. And then my final one is Floyd Patterson, a person that we all probably grew up watching throughout his career. And what was interesting for a person to be a heavyweight champion prize fighter, he had a significant inferiority complex, and it goes throughout his career and how he had dealt with defeat. He was 71 years old. He died of Alzheimer's, and also for the last 8 years, he also had prostate cancer. He was the first man in the history of boxing to win the heavyweight title twice when he had that memorable fight with Ingemar Johansson in 1960. He also, to my great despair, sitting and watching at the Wilton Theater twice, watched Sonny Liston knock him out, and basically was at that time one of those issues, the good guy versus the bad guy, and he was always viewed as the good guy, but lost. He also won the title by defeating Archie Moore for the vacant heavyweight title in '56. He also was a Olympic champion and certainly has a renowned career. After leaving boxing, he became a New York State athletic commissioner, and he held that position until illness. His record basically was 55-8-1 record with 40 knockouts. Most people believe that he was a legitimate middleweight fighting as a heavyweight, but at that time, at 200 pounds, he was quite a fighter, and certainly, having had a chance to meet him a couple of times, a great human being.
Thank you. I'll add Mr. Wesson to that as well. Yeah, to all members. Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a very sad note for me to announce that about 8 hours ago, a real civic leader in the 11th District, the publisher and the editor of the Argonaut, died. And he was only 68 years old. His name is David Asper Johnson. And he took a newspaper in 1971, 35 years ago, and made it the must-to-read newspaper in my district. It covered all the issues that are important to the people in the district. He would call the LA Times, that little paper downtown, with a bit of a sneer, as his paper came out weekly, and we all read that first because we knew it had more news in it about what was really going on in our community than any other newspaper. Most folks didn't know he was ill. I spoke to him a week ago, and he was very encouraged that things were working all right, but he had a rare blood disease. Tomorrow there'll be a big splash in the Argonaut, which comes out on Thursday, announcing that he just passed away a few hours ago, and his last editorial that he just wrote before will be published. He'll be greatly missed by all of us who were avid readers of his great public service, which was the Argonaut newspaper. May he rest in peace.
Thank you. Mr. Wesson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President and members. Today I rise to adjourn in the memory of Miss Margaret Marie Wesson. Miss Margaret Marie was born Miss Margaret Marie Crawford in New Orleans, July 11th, 1920. She passed away May 8th. She, along the line, she met a dashing young gentleman by the name of Julius Wesson, and they were married. She's a graduate of LA High and was a 70-year resident in this great city. She's survived by her sister that many of you may know, Patricia Miller, who was a longtime aide to Congressman Julian Dixon and is currently the senior health deputy for Supervisor Yvonne Burke. She's also survived by her son-in-law and a host of friends and relatives that will truly miss her.
Thank you, Mr. Wesson. Any other motions, colleagues? Yes,
I'd
Ms.
like
Perry.
to add my name onto that one.
I'll add Ms. Perry to that as a seconder. If there's no other adjourning motions, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. Just a reminder, we're at Bear Quorum for Friday. We will see everybody 10 o'clock this Friday here in City Hall. This meeting of the Los Angeles City Council is adjourned.